I think the bigger surprise is certainly Ed Cooley. Like, I think we all saw this coming with Rick Pitino a week ago to St. John's, and it made all the sense in the world. It actually made more sense in a way that Georgetown hires Rick Pitino, but they weren't. They weren't going that route at all. And I've talked to Cooley, in full disclosure, I've talked to Cooley about this Georgetown job for years. And you know, who was the first one to probably put out Georgetown and Cooley blank check? That was me. And one thing I'll say is there were several factors that played in here. One was Cooley's love of Georgetown, right? One was Cooley's thought process of can I keep this going at Providence? Georgetown has a higher ceiling. It's a better job. I've said this for years. Just because Patrick Ewing wasn't very good doesn't mean that Georgetown isn't a good job. It's a great job. They've got similar practice facilities. Georgetown's got an incredible recruiting base. And sometimes after 10 plus years, especially when you grew up in Providence, it's time for a change. Everywhere Ed Cooley went, he got mobbed in Providence. Now he can go, he's in a pro sports town. He can go out for dinner with his wife and nobody knows who the hell he is. Sometimes that's a good thing. Yep. So ultimately, I think this was something that made sense for Cooley in a lot of ways. But ultimately, I went back to the same thing, Rob, over and over and over. As Ed Cooley is signing his name, does he freak out at the very end and say, oh, my God, I'm going to be hated in my own home city, maybe forever, certainly for a while. It's going to take a while. When he goes back to the dunk, and that's what I always call it, he is going to get booed especially by those students. Maybe not to the level Beard did when he went back to Texas Tech, but maybe not that far off from the students. I don't know how the
it's going to be. It's going to be up there. It's going to be just based off of the reception that I'm seeing on social media and the reaction that I'm seeing to this decision. I don't think that he's going to be very well liked. And look, I kind of go back and forth in this, right? I've made this point to you before. Georgetown is absolutely a better job than Providence. I think the rebuild at Georgetown is going to take a little bit longer than a lot of people realize. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think the ceiling is quite as high as it was when Big John was there. Mostly because I don't think you're going to be able to create the same home court environment in that arena, in that building, with what the demographics of the city of Washington D.C. have become. It's just different now. That said, if there's going to be someone that can navigate the waters of the DC, like the murky waters of the DC recruiting base, it's Ed Cooley. Everybody likes Ed. It's very difficult not to like Ed unless you're a Providence fan. And I do think that he's a good enough coach that he's going to be able to take these players. Like there's very few people that can throw out as many different looks as he gives you and have as many different game plans as he provides. Like he's a very, very good X's and O's kind of game planning coach. So
here's the thing, Rob. In 5 years ago, it would have been tough. These days, with the portal, Ed can go in and flip this thing. He knows he doesn't have to start. It looks like it's from the bottom, but it's really not, because ultimately he's going to get some of the same type of transfers that he got at Providence at Georgetown, and he knows.
I've heard some of those names already. I'm sure you've heard some of the same names that I've heard that he might be targeting. And sure. I do think. Am I right in saying that he's going to have a nice little pot of NIL money to be able to use while he's there?
But he did it. He did at Providence. That was the misnomer. The misnomer was Providence had no NIL. They actually had competitive NIL. But Georgetown, again, the ceiling is higher for Georgetown. And Ed Cooley is obviously walking into it saying, hey, if you really want me, this is what I need. I need this for my staff. And I think he'll probably bring his staff with him. And I need this for NIL. And, again, you don't have to, like, if this had happened 5 or 10 years ago, I would have worried about, is Ed Cooley going to work hard enough to rebuild this thing from the bottom? Now, so much of what you do is through the portal that I don't think it's as much about that. It's more about what have you done and what do you have in NIL?
All right. So I'm going to play devil's advocate again. I think we've seen other coaches leave, air quotes here, home, right? It's not necessarily the home, but they've left places where they were never going to get fired and they never had to worry about job security ever. Guys that come immediately to mind, Shaka Smart goes to Texas, was a 3 seed, the year that he and Texas parted ways. I guess you could say amicably, but it was mostly like, hey man, look, you gotta
mutual.
Yeah, it was mutual.
Yes.
Chris Mack was the #1 team in the country in 2020, and 18 months later, him and Louisville are parting ways. And it's just like when you take that next step up, and you're going to a place that you no longer have that like familial loyalty to, that they can you're just, instead of having it be you are Providence, right? You are now an employee at Georgetown. It changes the dynamic of that job. Today's episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play college basketball pick'em, where you can get a little extra sweat during March Madness and win real cash prizes simply by picking player stats in this weekend's games. In pick'em, all you do is predict whether a player will go higher or lower on Underdog's projected totals, whether that's points, rebounds, whatever. For example, if you're like me and you think Zach Edey is going to go nuts in this tournament, take higher on his points projection, add up to 4 more picks, and if you hit them all, you can win 20 times your money on a single game. Underdog's slick mobile app is easy enough that dummies like Jeff Goodman have even figured it out. So go to underdogfantasy.com or download the app and use the code FIELD, FIELD, and Underdog will match your deposit up to $100. Now is the time to get in on the madness. So remember, underdogfantasy.com, promo code FIELD. And at the end of the day, like when you get a check that's going to be as big as the one that Ed Cooley got, and
but
what
Providence was paying him well. Listen,
no, I get that, but what I'm saying is like
4.5. They were paying him 4.5. I think he'll probably make 5.5 at George. That is a lot of money to leave on the table at the end of the day. But I don't think it was about money, Rob. I don't.
Hey, he probably would have made more given the cost of living in Providence versus the cost of living.
That too. No, you're right. But again, your lifestyle, you get older. Even for somebody like me, right? I want to get out of the colder winters. Georgetown, it's not that much warmer, but it is warmer. Like it is nicer to live around. Georgetown is a beautiful, beautiful area.
Oh, I know. I used to live down there. I'm trying to. I want to go back. I love it, man. It's it very much is like
Georgetown's a better job. It's a better job. I've been saying this for years. I'm not
arguing with you that it's a better job. I'm just saying, like when you're at a job like Georgetown, it's much easier for them to. There's a different level of pressure, right? All you got to do at Providence is he won a Big East regular season. He won a Big East tournament title, and they would have built him a statue if he stayed there forever. Now at Georgetown, if you go there and in 5 years, you're still this team that is just kind of like meandering along, finishing top 4 and top 5 in the league every couple of years. And
you know what Ed'll do?
And like you're on the hot seat there.
You know what Ed'll do then? He'll go and work in TV and kill it.
Yeah.
So like Ed's fine. Ed's fine. He's saying to himself at this point, I want a different challenge. I've done the Providence thing long enough. I'm not sure I can sustain this. Yes, he had equity built up. That's the one area that now, all right, you're going to have to grind it a little bit. Where at Providence, he didn't really go out on the recruiting trail at all last summer. Now, he was dealing with some health issues also, but he didn't really go out. He didn't really have to at Providence. He's going to have to work harder at Georgetown, obviously. But again, the expectations are so low right now. The bar is so low. Get to one tournament in the next 4 years, and you've done a hell of a job at Georgetown. He understands that. He also, the part we haven't talked about yet, being a black head coach, going to Georgetown, and what it means to Ed Cooley to follow in the footsteps of a big John Thompson. Mm-hmm. Let's not gloss over that and what it means to Ed Cooley.
Is that how much of a role did that play in his decision?
Some. I'm sure he'll talk about it. Sure, it absolutely did. I just think he knows, like, Providence, you went to a Sweet 16. That was probably about as high as you could take it at Providence. Where at Georgetown, I think he feels like, hey, if I hit it at Georgetown, maybe I can get to a Final Four, win a national title.
Yeah, they were in a Final Four as recently as I believe it was 2007 with John Thompson III. So, yeah, it's crazy. I honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. Part of me is still sitting here waiting for him to pull a Dana Altman, right? In 2 days, just kind of say like, hey, you know what? Hey, this isn't for me. I'm gonna head back to Providence. Part of me is sitting here waiting for that to happen, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But
I would say this, like again, to me, I've said this multiple times. Nobody wants to be loved more than Ed Cooley. That's why I didn't think he'd leave ultimately. Now he's got to come to terms with being hated in his own city. That is not going to be easy for Ed Cooley.
Mm-hmm. Who are you going after if you are the Providence AD? Where's the replacement? I know you put out a tweet that said Micah Shrewsbury, probably not going to take it.
Right.
Kim English from Georgetown. Where do you stand?
Yeah, I think ultimately Micah Shrewsbury, if you've got Penn State for even money, let's call it, compared to Providence, you're not leaving. There's no reason to go. Providence is a middle tier job in the Big East, maybe not even, probably middle tier. Penn State, the way he's done it, he's built up equity. They've got NIL coming in at Penn State. They've got now this small ball style that is attractive to kids in the portal. So I think you'd stay at Penn State over going to Providence. He's also probably going to have Notre Dame on the table. That's going to be the decision I think Mike is going to have to make, is more Notre Dame or Penn State. He's from the Midwest, obviously. He knows the Midwest. He knows Indiana well. But does he want to go to Notre Dame, where, frankly, it's difficult to bring in transfers? That's the hard part. You bring anybody you want in at Penn State. Transfer-wise, at Notre Dame, there's some restrictions in place. You've also got to build that from kind of Penn State, you're losing everything too, but you've got momentum. At Notre Dame, there's no momentum right now.
Mm-hmm. The one thing I would say about pushback on, you said Providence is a middle tier in the Big East job. I think right now it's not. If you have something good going at a similar level, you're not going to take a lateral move to go there.